talk about the 25 books I want to read in 2025. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. So as you can see, this is going to be the 25 books that I hope to get to in 2025. But I just like to make these little TBRs at the start of the year just to kind of like give me a guide as to like if I'm feeling like not sure what I'm in the mood to pick up, then I can kind of come here and look at this list and just see if anything takes my fancy. So I've got the big stack that you guys can see there, and then I've also got a massive stack of books on the ground. So in this lot there is 24 books, and then I do also have one new release that I wanted to include, which I don't normally include new releases, but I have been so excited for this book for ages that I wanted to put it on this list. But my main priority for 2025 is, like I'm sure many of you watching, is to cut down my physical TBR. So I want to have a good crack at cutting down the amount of unread books that I own. I do have more reading goals and things, but I will go into that in my reading journal video. It's coming soon. Without further ado, let's talk about all the books that I hope to get to in 2025. There are obviously more on this list that I would love to get to, but these are kind of like ones that are like at the top of my priority. Some of them I did also get my husband to pick for me because I just think it's fun with getting him involved to pick a few, and there is a wide variety in terms of genre. I might start with the new release, and then I'll start with the stack on the ground, then we'll move into the stack here. So the first book on my radar and the new release I'm hoping to get to in 2025 is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. So I have been a massive Hunger Games fan. I read the Hunger Games for the first time when I was, I think 14, I think in year 10 of high school. I read the first book, The Hunger Games, in 5 days. I read the second book, Catching Fire, in 2 days, and then I read the third book, Mockingjay, in 7 days. Then I did also read The Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds when that first came out, but I found it really slow, but loved the movie, thought the movie was incredible. So I'm really excited to see what Suzanne Collins does. Sunrise on the Reaping is Haymitch's story, and I love Haymitch as a character. I think he is so layered, and I'm really excited that we are finally getting a book from his perspective, and I cannot wait. Yeah, I'm just really excited for this. I'm really excited for the movie when that comes out next year. So the first physical book on my TBR is actually a book that I have already started reading, which is fantastic. I didn't actually plan that, I just picked it up because I felt in the mood for it. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So I have only ever read Beach Read by Emily Henry. I read Beach Read last year, around this time of the year. I really liked it, so I am intrigued to see what I think about Book Lovers. You're following Nora and Charlie, and they both end up in this like little small town. Nora is a literary agent, and I think Charlie is a book editor, so they both work in the like book community. I'm guessing it's just a romance between the two of them. So far I'm really enjoying this. It's very witty. So far so good. I am not too far through this. I'm on chapter 7, page 79. The next book on my radar is a book that I have owned for a really long time. This is the first book in a series, so if I enjoy this I will continue to read the series. This one is The Lying Game by Sarah Shepherd. Sarah Shepherd is the author of Pretty Little Liars. I didn't read the Pretty Little Liars books because my sister read them and they were a little bit darker than the TV show. I watched the TV show of The Lying Game when that came out ages ago, and I really liked it. So I am intrigued to see what I think of this one. This one, you follow two twin sisters, and one of them dies and the other one, I think, pretends to take her place. Yeah, because she wants to be her to try and figure out what happened to her. So very intriguing. This is also a YA series. The third book in the Mortal Instruments series. So last year I read both The City of Bones and The City of Ashes is the second book. So I read the first two books last year, so I just put the third book on here because I really want to try and get to it. In this series you are following following Clary, and Clary is just like an ordinary girl living her life, and then one day her mum disappears. She can see these people who are called the shadow hunters that not everyone can see, so it's kind of like a world within the world that she lives in. She suspects that the people in the shadow hunters universe have taken her mum. She is trying to just find her mum. But I have really enjoyed the series so far. It's also got vampires and werewolves in it. Again, it's like a YA fantasy series. This is one that I never read as a kid, so I feel like I kind of missed out. So I've been really enjoying the series so far. I know that everyone says that like the first 2 books are really slow, but I have really enjoyed them so far. Next up is a book that has been on my physical TBR for so long that I just want to read it to get it off. This one is New Girl by Paige. This one is just following this chickie who is at a prestigious school. She's like the new girl, but there's this girl apparently at the school went missing, and the only reason that this girl got into the school is because this other girl went missing. I think this is general fiction or a mystery book. I can't quite remember. It seems like it's got a little bit of mystery to it, but it's YA I think as well, so I'm intrigued to see what I think. I do really enjoy books that are like set in schools. Like at the moment I am in the middle of my Harry Potter continuation of the series, and I'm really enjoying that, and I really enjoyed the Magpie Society duology, and that was set at a school as well, so hopefully I will like this. I have my only like Christian book on this list. I always will try and put at least like 1 or 2 on my list, but I really want to finish this book here. This one is Preparing for Marriage God's Way by Wayne A. Mack. So Phil and I, who's my husband, we started reading this when we were engaged, and we just never finished, and in April we will have been married for 3 years. So I just really just want to finish this book with him, so I feel like we'll probably just go through it together. We are in the middle of a chapter, which is really annoying. We are in the middle of chapter 4, so I really just want to continue this, and I feel like we'll still be able to get stuff out of this, because when you're in a marriage, you're constantly growing and learning about your partner. One of the books that my husband picked for me to read is this classic. So this one is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I actually don't know much about it at all. It just says, a lawyer's advice to his children as he defends the real mockingbird of this enchanting classic. Harper Lee explores with exuberant humor the irrationality of adult attitudes to race and class in the deep South of the 30s. The conscience of a town steeped in prejudice, violence, and hypocrisy is pricked by the stamina of one man's struggle for justice, but the weight of history will only tolerate so much. So it might be a little bit more of a heavier classic, but I know that it is one that a lot of people really like. I'm not really a big classics reader. I've only ever read 2. I've read Animal Farm by George Orwell, and then in Vlogmas last year I read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and that one I actually enjoyed, so we'll see how we go. I have this one here. So this one is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I know that this book has had so much hype, so I just want to see what the hype is about. My sister read it last year, and I think she really enjoyed it. So it's a story of friendship, I think, and it goes over a long time, and I think they're like creating a video game or a game of some sort, so I'm intrigued. I read Elsewhere by Gabrielle Zevin I think like 5 years ago or something. I put it in a really old current favorites video, and I really wanted to read more of her writings. Then I might just jump back to all of the books that Phil has picked for me. So I've got 3 more down here, 1 in this stack. This one here. This one is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. So this is kind of just like a take on the end of the world, kind of like a war between good and evil. But we watched the TV show of this. We watched season 1, I think a few years ago now, and really enjoyed it. And then we watched season 2 of Good Omens last year, and I quite enjoyed it as well. So I'm just intrigued to see what they do. Obviously, like as a Christian, it will be a very like take it with a grain of salt kind of vibes. The Associate by John Grisham. John Grisham writes a lot about lawyers, and if you guys don't know, I am studying law at uni, so I am intrigued to see what I think. This one just says, Kyle McAvery is one of the outstanding legal students of his generation, but he has a secret from his past, a secret that threatens to destroy his fledgling career and possibly his entire life. One night that secret catches up with him in the form of some bad men in a dark alley. They're gonna make him pay a high price for their silence. will his intellect, cunning and bravery be enough to extricate him from an impossible dilemma? So this one is an adult thriller. I don't really read a lot of adult thrillers. We'll see what we think. And I like the idea of it being a law student because then I relate to the characters a lot. The last book in this bottom stack that Phil chose for me to read is this one here. So this one is The Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve. So I watched the movie of this like when it first came out. I went to the cinemas and watched it and I really enjoyed it. It's just like set in a place where you have moving cities, and I think they're like in the desert. Yeah, it just says, in a dangerous future, high motorized cities hunt, attack and fight each other for survival. As London pursues a small town, young apprentice Tom is flung out into the wastelands where a terrifying cyborg begins to hunt him down. So this is the first book in the Mortal Engines series, so I am intrigued. This is a science fiction slash dystopian series and I love a good dystopian series. Like, that is probably my favorite kind of series to read because I just fly through them because I just absolutely love them. The last book that I've got down here for ones that I would love to read in 2025 is No Exit by Taylor Adams. I have heard so many great things about this book. Again, this is another adult thriller where this chickie pulls into this rest stop because I think it's like a blizzard outside or it's like really late at night, and as she is walking to this like motel rest stop thing, she sees a little girl trapped in the back of a vehicle. It's kind of like trying to figure out who has taken this girl from this rest stop, why they've taken her, and also how she can get this girl out safely. So I'm very intrigued. It says 13 hours, 4 strangers, 1 missing child, no exit. She knows her odds, she'll fight anyway. I love things when they're told in like a 24-hour period because there's just like so much like tension and the stakes are incredibly high. In this stack we've got more like fantasy, romance, we've got non-fiction. Starting at the top we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. So this was Hannah Grace's new release last year and I really wanted to get to this last year, but I just ran out of time. Like, I was just reading so many other books that I just didn't get time for this, and I like to pick up these books when I feel in the mood to pick them up. I'm a massive mood reader because I find that way I give my books the best chance that I can give them. But this one is the 3rd book in the Maple Hills series, and you've got Henry and Hallie. So Henry we've met in the previous 2 books, which are Icebreaker and Wildfire, and Hallie is a new character, and from what I've heard people say, this one has the most emotional depth and they have a really beautiful friendship that blossoms into the romance, so I really like that. I think Hallie is tutoring Henry, yeah, because he doesn't think that he's gonna pass and he needs to pass to stay on the hockey team, I think. And from what I know about Hallie, she's like a big bookworm, she crochets, apparently she listens to Taylor Swift as well. I love the cover as well. This is one of my favorite covers that I own. Next up is another new release that I had anticipated for last year but again just didn't get to, and that is Reckless. So I finally picked up a copy of Reckless by Lauren Roberts. So I read Powerless and Powerful last year and I really enjoyed both of them. So I really want to get to this before Fearless comes out this year, because I would also love to read that to just finish the Powerless trilogy. In the Powerless world you have elites and ordinaries. Elites have powers and ordinaries don't. So our main girl Peyton is an ordinary but she's posing as a psychic, and then you have Kai, our main guy, who is an elite and I think he's the king's son. They have a run-in and there's like a set of trials in this book that like elites normally compete in to like win the favor of the community, society, and like gain respect and stuff. So Kai is put into these trials and Peyton also gets put in, but she obviously doesn't have any powers and she's going up against elites who all have powers, and I'm really intrigued to see what I think of this book. A lot of people say that it's got filler book syndrome where like there's not much that happens but it kind of just sets up for the next book. But I'm going to give it its fair shot and see what I think, because I don't rate my books. I just say that I either liked them, I would recommend them, or I didn't like them and then I charity them. We have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I am really intrigued to see what I think of this book. This is a cozy fantasy where you're just following Emily Wilde's as she is writing an encyclopedia about fairies. She's researching them, so you go along through her adventures and things like that, and you learn with her, and so I'm intrigued. I feel like this is a good like spring or summer read because it's like a cozy fantasy. It's not very like high stakes. The second book for this came out last year and the third book comes out this year. I heard someone say that it was written as a diary, and I was really nervous because I still haven't finished The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was written as a diary, because I just found it really difficult. It's written as a diary, but it's written as like a proper chapter with just the chapter name is the diary entry, so I feel like I'm gonna like this a lot more. Next up we have the last book that Phil picked for me. This one is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, or Doerr, I'm not quite sure. There was a TV show of this, I think, that came out, and my husband started watching it, and I saw him watching it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to watch that, but I want to read the book first. So I think that's why he's put this on my list, because he's been watching the TV show and I think he wants to watch it with me. Yeah, this is a historical fiction. Follows a person who's been blind since the age of 6, and her father works in the Museum of Natural History that's set in the war times, because there's another kid in here that I think joins the youth or something, so very intrigued. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, so we'll see what I think. We have a romance book, and I just put this book on my TBR because it has been sat on my shelf for a very long time. This book is also almost 400 pages, which I just feel like for a romance book is so freaking long. This one is My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This one here takes place in the summertime, so hopefully I can get to it this summer. It just says that this chickie comes from a very like neat, clean, orderly environment, but her next door neighbor Garrett, he comes from like a very loud and messy kind of house. I think it's just like a neighbor friends to lovers kind of story, so honestly it sounds great. I don't know why I haven't picked this up. Next up we have a big boy that I want to get to. Again, I really wanted to get to this in 2024, but just ran out of time, quite frankly, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. So I read Fourth Wing last year in February, and I really loved it. I just thought it was a great story. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the plot, I really enjoyed the dragons, so I'm intrigued to see what I think of Iron Flame. This is the second book in the Imperium series, and we are getting book 3. I don't know if I'll be able to read all of this before the end of January, because I'm currently in the middle of my Harry Potter read, which is a 700-page book, and this one is like over 620, so we'll see. Again, I know a lot of people didn't love this book, but I'm gonna give it a fair shot and see what I think. But basically, if you've never read Fourth Wing, you are following Violet, and Violet has trained her entire life to be a scribe. Those are like the people who like write down history and things like that, and she is enrolled in this like war college, and her mum is like the equivalent to like the principal, and her mum basically looks down on anyone who is not a dragon rider, and so she enters Violet into the riders quadrant to be a dragon rider. And Violet is just like this little small, petite, easygoing person. She has not trained to be a fighter at all. The Riders Quadrant is brutal and a lot of people die. So yeah, she's just trying to survive, and then they ride dragons. Kind of like a cross between Harry Potter, How to Train Your Dragon, and the Hunger Games. So if that sounds up your alley, you might enjoy Fourth Wing. But I'm intrigued to see where we go in Iron Flame. We have a series that I'm wanting to start this year, but I've just put the first book on my TBR, and that is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So I read the Inheritance Games trilogy in 2023 and really enjoyed it, so I want to give another series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes a go. So this one, you are just following these high school kids who have very extravagant abilities when it comes to crime solving, and so I think they just help the FBI solve crimes. People have described it as like criminal minds, but for like young, like high school students. And apparently it's like very, very fast paced. Obviously the tension and the stakes will be quite high in this book because you're dealing with like these dangerous criminals. This is just a YA mystery series, and Jennifer Lynn Barnes books are always so easy to read because the chapters are really short. Next up we have a non-fiction book. This one is She's on the Money by Victoria Devine. So Victoria Devine runs the She's on the Money podcast, which is a podcast that I listen to. She's Australian, and it's just all about money and how to like invest and better your finances. It's really, really inspiring. And one of my goals this year, which if you guys will know if you watched my 2025 reset video, if you haven't, I'll leave that down below. But one of my goals this year is to accumulate less and save more. So I'm hoping that with the tips in this book, it will help me to do that. So yeah, I'm very, very intrigued. Also, for a finance book, this just looks so stunning. The next few books are ones, again, that I have had on my shelf for far too long. I have this book here. This one is Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. This is a YA fantasy series. It's a 4-book series with a little novella, can't quite remember, but Becca Fitzpatrick wrote Black Ice, which is one of my favorite books of all time, and I really want to pick up another book by her and I just haven't. Falling for the Fallen. For Nora Gray, romance was not part of the plan, not until Patch came along. With his easy smile and eyes that seem to see inside her, Nora is drawn to him against her better judgment. But after a series of terrifying encounters, Nora can't decide whether to fall into his arms or run and hide. And when she tries to seek some answers, she finds herself near a truth that is way more unsettling than anything Patch makes her feel. For Nora is in the middle of a centuries-old battle between the immortal and those that have fallen, and the wrong choice will cost her her life. This one gives me very similar vibes, obviously, to Twilight, and also to the book Die For Me by Amy Plum. That Die For Me trilogy I absolutely love. It is such an underrated trilogy. I feel like I'll enjoy this. I just need to take the plunge and actually start the series. This book here, this one is Fashion Victim by Sam Baker. So this one is following somebody who works in like a magazine, which I have said this before, but I love TV shows that are set in some sort of like writing, officey, magazine marketing type thing. I love Emily in Paris for that reason. I love the Devil Wears Prada movie for that reason. I love the Carrie Diaries for that reason, and I love the Bold Type for that reason, because they all center around that idea. So I feel like I'm gonna really, really enjoy this. I just haven't picked it up yet. It just says, who would leave a highly respected, hard-won position as an investigative journalist at one of London's top newspapers for a job at a fashion rag? That's the question on everyone's mind when Annie Anderson announces that she's making the move. After a few days at Handbag, Annie realizes that being a fashion editor is going to be much harder than she ever anticipated. Thrown into the heart of New York Fashion Week, she is unprepared for her new world's bewildering hierarchy. But if there's one thing Annie knows, it's interviewing. So when she scores an exclusive with the hot and upcoming designer Mark Mailer, she's back on familiar ground. The gossip du jour has Mark and his model girlfriend Patty Lang on the outs after Patty's disastrous and very public return to her first love. Annie senses there's much more to the story, but before she can coax Mark to open up, he's dead, shot before Annie's eyes in what appears to be attempted robbery. Annie believes that Mark's death was anything but random, and a grief-stricken Patty agrees. From New York to London to Milan, Annie searches for answers, but in the pursuit of a good story, Annie must not lose sight of her common sense. All the consequences could make her the next fashion victim. So this one is like a little like mystery, thrillery type book. Next up we have a psychological thriller that I first saw on Pinterest. That is this one here. This one is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. So this one gives me very similar vibes to Murder on the Orient Express, the movie with Johnny Depp. But instead of a train, it's a boat. This person, I think, witnesses someone being thrown overboard at night, and she saw them like come out of this cabin and was thrown overboard by another person on this boat. But then when she goes to tell the captain says that there was no one ever registered to being in that room on this boat. Sounds fascinating. I'm really interested to see kind of like where it goes. I also love stories set on boats. Last year I read Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, and while it's a very different genre, that was a cozy fantasy. I really enjoyed the aspect of it being set on the boat. Okay, hopefully I'm in kind of the same position. My battery just died, so we're back with a new battery and we have 2 books left. This one here, this one is Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. So this is the 3rd and final book in the Knock 'Em Out trilogy. I read Things We Never Got Over last year, and then I started Things We Hide from the Light last year and finished it this year, so I am now up to the 3rd book. I'm not obsessed with the series. Like, I enjoyed the 1st book, hated the 2nd book, so I'm intrigued to see what I think of this one. This one is Lucian and Sloane's story, so I am really excited to see where they go. I know a lot of people were disappointed by this book, but this book here for me is going to make or break as to whether I keep at least the last 2 books in the series. I'll keep the 1st one for sure. Just want to read it to complete the series basically. This one, you are in the small town of Knock 'Em Out and you follow a different couple every book, so it's like an interconnected standalone romance series. Sloane is the librarian and Lucian is friends with Knox and Nash, who are brothers who were in the 1st book, but you've kind of got like crumbs as to what he does because it seems like not all of the stuff he does is legal, so I'm very intrigued to see where they go in this book. And then the lucky last book that I have on my radar for 2025, the 25th book, is Ruthless Vows. So this one is by Rebecca Ross. This is the 2nd and final book in the Letters of Enchantment series. The 1st book is Divine Rivals, and I read Divine Rivals last year for the first time and absolutely loved it. I know that this one here, the romance takes a bit more of a backseat and you get more of like the war and the politics, which to be honest makes sense because we got like quite a bit of like the romance set up and we kind of saw the romance bloom a bit in Divine Rivals. So even if we get like crumbs of the romance in this book, I still think this will be a really good series. Again, another one of my absolute favorite covers that I own. You are following Ronan and Iris, and again, they both work in this like journalism place, and Iris comes from like a pretty tough home life, and one day she is just writing a message on her nan's old typewriter or grandma's typewriter, and she puts the letters under the door in her wardrobe, doesn't think much of it, and then she goes to the wardrobe a couple days later to get the letters back out, and the letters are gone and someone has written back. So it's kind of like surrounding this like magical typewriter, and the story kind of goes from there. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, so I'm really excited to see where book 2 goes basically. So there we go guys, those are the 25 books that I have on my radar for 2025. I really hope you guys have enjoyed seeing all of the books on my radar. If you've read any of the books that I have shown, let me know your thoughts down below. Obviously we will keep the comments spoiler free please, so if anyone coming across this video wants to read the books as well, then no one gets any spoilers. I'm genuinely so excited for all of these. Obviously I've already started reading one of them too, so that's always good. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Please make sure to turn on the notifications and check out my social media. It's always linked down below in the description box. If you guys want to watch more like book related content, I have got an entire playlist called Reading on my channel, so I will leave that playlist down below. My channel does kind of have like a mix of everything, but I do tend to do book videos quite often because I really enjoy all the book content. I enjoy watching it, I enjoy making it, I enjoy editing it. I love reading too. Let me know if there's any specific book videos that you would like to see this year. Yeah, I'm gonna love you and leave you, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.